Hi, everyone. My name is Ilana Golan. I'm founder and CEO of Stiya. I'll tell you more about it as we go along. Before Stiya, I actually founded an enterprise company, built it from really unknown business, kind of losing business, to multi-million deals. Been in a few other startups, including an exit of 300 million. That was great. I wasn't a founder, but it was still fun. And been an engineer for a long time. So I felt like startups is something that I've done for a while now, and really want to talk a little bit about, you want to start a startup, now what, and a little bit of do's and don'ts of a startup. It's definitely an interesting journey. By the way, I did start my career as an F-16 flight instructor and became the first woman to ever become a commander and in charge of all the training of all pilots. The reason I'm mentioning it is because I will touch a little bit about women specifically starting startups, a little bit about reactions of investors to women, and how do we kind of get along in this a little more male dominant world. So startups do's and don'ts. Please feel free to ask questions. We'll try to answer them in the chat. So first of all, welcome to the roller coaster of a lifetime. People may think that they know ups and downs until they actually start their own startup. So, it's really normal to have extreme ups, very normal to have extreme downs. And we'll maybe touch a little bit about how do you find a voice within the downs. It's really hard to keep the team together. It's very hard because you're kind of feeling alone on this. You feel like if you're going to burden this on the team, maybe you'll lose them. So there's a lot of psychology there. I'll try to touch some of this, but definitely a ride of a lifetime. Have fun on the way for sure. A little bit of don'ts that I've found along the way. First of all, absolutely don't start a startup because you want to make money. That's probably the worst way in general and average to make money. Much better way is to find a startup that is already doing well. Join some kind of a good team like Slack or whatever, and you'll shine. Startup, 97% of them will actually, if you start a startup, 97% that you're actually gonna have less money than you started. So just be aware of it and just make sure that this is not one of your one of the main reasons. And startup is a time machine. I had a lot of people telling me that they want to experiment for a year or two. And that's the worst thing ever, because in a year or two, you really don't know much. I love it when people tell me about, but Airbnb is such an overnight success. Well, Airbnb founded in 2004. It's far from an overnight success. The guys are amazing. I am, completely inspired them. They were battling rejections after rejection. They couldn't get money. Nobody wanted to invest. It sounded like a horrific idea. And it suddenly takes off and everybody thinks it's an overnight success. Well, it's not. It's years. It's a decade of battling. Think about it. So really don't think about it as an overnight success. It takes 5 to 10 years to really mature a startup. So really make sure you're there for the long haul and not for kind of a fun, let's launch it and see what happens. Most cases you'll launch it and nothing will happen. And really, there are, whether you like it or not, I'm a huge believer in listening to any feedback, but you need to also know when something is just negative. And some people are just negative in nature. Again, I'm saying listen, but take it with a grain of salt. And sometimes if it's new negative, just walk away, because at this point, you need all the positive thinking in the world. You need honest feedback, but you need also a lot of positive thinking. So if it's negative people, just walk away. There's ample of other people to be around. So these are a few don'ts that I ran into, and I just kind of felt like I need to get it off my chest. And we'll go to a lot of do's because, it is an amazing ride, and there's a lot of things that can and should go well. So You want to start a startup. You want to be, and it doesn't matter what the reason is, as long as it's not money. You want to be independent. You want to have some freedom to do whatever you want. Don't think that it's free time, because it's not, but it's freedom. And you have this idea, and you really want to make it happen. And it doesn't matter, if it's a sweater from head to toe that you think it's a brilliant idea, or whatever it is that comes to mind. I'm a huge believer that unless it's a some kind of biochemical thing that you invented, or some chemistry thing that nobody has thought of, 97% of the ideas have been tried before. Honestly, you'll look at the App Store and it's all there. You'll look at the website, it's all there. But it's going to be an execution thing that maybe this is where you're going to differentiate. And look at Uber. There were taxis. There were people taking you from one side to the other, but that changed the world, right? And et cetera. So really think about why your idea is different. And I would personally talk to as many people as you can. Yes, I know some people are afraid that somebody will steal their ideas. Honestly, people don't go around stealing people's ideas. It just doesn't happen. And the more you talk to people, the more you'll get real feedback about whether this makes any sense and whether you really want to invest the time in it, because you really don't want to invest a year or two, a lot of money, and then find out that actually nobody cares. So really make an effort to talk to as many people as you can. It's going to be super valuable down the line. And really make sure people want a sweater head to toe. That's kind of a little thing. And when you talk to people, make sure that you talk to them about the problem you're solving, not so much how you're solving the problem. Because for them, and I love this quote, people don't want a drill machine. They want a hole in the wall. They have this photo. They want to put it, they want to hang it somewhere. They want a solution to a problem. They don't care how you're solving this, or they want a cold beer. They don't necessarily want a huge structure on their back to have them beer all the time. So really make sure that you aim at the problem and you describe the problem and you get feedback for that idea. And once we're on it, then it's really about telling your story, right? And the story can change, whether it's a really short, hey, what do you do? And you have exactly one sentence to tell them more about what you do. Or it could be more about a real story, a 3-minute, a 5-minute story, that like a pitch competition or whatever, that basically says, okay, you have 3 minutes to tell your story. So really think about how you're telling the story in a way that somebody will actually feel, the pain, and then, wow, and she's solving it. That's amazing. And I'll give you an example, and I think Stiya is a great example because you guys don't know it, or your girls, so you don't come with some perceived idea. But, I have 2 ways of telling you about my startup. One way is, hey, we're creating a really cool app. It's actually an automatic journal that captures your location and photos, and it turns out like a really beautiful thing that is private, but you can also search and share. Interesting story. Some people may, you might catch them and say, I always wanted to journal. Maybe that's going to catch them. But in 95% or 99%, this story doesn't catch. I can tell you the story in a slightly different way. And by the way, that's usually how I tell about Stiya. I basically say, you know what, let me tell you a story and tell me if this happens to you. I go to San Francisco for a day, maybe take a couple pictures and then walk around and find a little nice neighborhood and find a nice lunch place and a great espresso spot right around the corner, and really had a great day. And a week after, a friend is saying, hey, Ilana, do you have an idea for a day in San Francisco? And I said, oh, yeah. I was just there last week. Here are the 2 photos. That's it. I don't remember anything. And I don't remember the name of the lunch spot. I don't remember exactly where we walked. The espresso place was awesome. And it's kind of blinked on me right now. And I'm lacking the story. I'm lacking my own experiences. If you think about it, we're in 2016. The only data you can't search for today is actually your own memory. How bizarre is that? Now, What if I somehow find it? I zoom on the map, I Google, I Yelp, I whatever, I find it somehow. What do I do then? I send you an email, a Google Docs? How do I pass it to a friend? I want to send an experience to a friend. And if you think about it, we know how to share photos, we know how to share location, but we don't know how to share experiences yet. And this is what Stiya is about. Stiya is the stories in your attic, bring the stories from the attic to your pocket so you don't forget. And then I explain how it's done. But if you think about it, what I try to do is aim at a story that probably majority of the people will snap and say, you know what, that happened to me actually. And I think this is cool. And yes, I want to solve this problem. And once I tell them about this awesome automatic journaling that we do, they'll want to download it. So really make sure that in your story, you have these main components. You have the pain, you have the problem. People need to feel it. It doesn't matter if it's investors or customers or whatever potential partnerships. They need to feel the pain and need to say, wow, you're solving it. This is amazing. What is your target market? That, you know, obviously you talk about the solution, the product, don't go into features, but just high level. But you want a target market. Who is your target market? We'll talk more about finding that target market. Definitely mention the team. Definitely mention a goal. And the goal, you know, sometimes needs to be like super high. You know, we want to change the future of memory forever. We want to make memories personal, accessible, searchable, shareable. Whatever it is that you're doing, make that goal and make sure it's big, because that's what investors want and that's the story that you're telling. There's, you know, a really nice, Guy Kawasaki always have this pitch deck rule, 10, 20, 30. I actually really like it. When you're actually creating a formal pitch deck, you know, it always says 10 slides and make it no more than 20 minute long, because there's going to be Q&A, etc., and 30 fonts. So really, it's not about putting everything in the slides. It's really more about how you tell the story and talk to these slides. So really work on the story. I can't say that enough. And your story will change with time, and that's okay too. Another thing, when you start a startup, you really want to think, A, for yourself, but also for people and for investors, the 3 whys. Why me? Why this? Why now? Super critical to learn that. So why me is, why am I the right person to create this startup? In my case, I love traveling. I love food. I love, you know, sport events. And I love experiencing life. And I felt like I can't remember it well enough. And I should be the guru of half of the world to tell people where to go. And I'm not, because I don't remember the details, and annoyed the hell out of me. So that's why me. Why this? You know, again, know your product well enough to explain why this can be successful. It's probably has been tried before. Why is this going to work this time? And why now? Why is this exact timing that will make a difference? Why is this, you know, people like silent apps in my case, or some other things, you know, think about why this timing is so important. Can't say this enough. MVP. So hopefully all of you have heard the term. Honestly, when I just started, I barely knew what an MVP is. That's minimum viable product. Sometimes, honestly, it's more of a minimum product. It's barely viable. But make sure that you take it out to the market to test it and to get feedback as fast as possible, because what you thought is super critical might be completely not what's critical to your users. So really take it out. And when I'm talking about MVP, and I really love this little drawing, is when I'm talking about MVP, really make sure that you're looking at something in the bottom that basically going to add value, but is usable every step of the way. So you're just going to add more and more capabilities, but it's an entire product that can use front to back every step on the way, versus just creating, you know, the wheels and eventually there's a car, but by the time there's a car, maybe this is not what you meant to build. So really kind of experiment, and we'll talk about the cycle of experimenting and learning as you go, kind of more the lean startup approach. Now, I can't state enough how it helped me to actually create a working prototype. or a working demo. At that point, you don't even need coding. You don't even need technical skills. Just go to whatever, whether it's Proto.io or Envision app or, whatever tool that you like, and just create mock-ups. So just create the screens. These are screens from the actual app, but I actually created something like this way before I had the app. And I went with these screens and flows, and it literally had buttons that you could click on and see how this flows. And I would go to the same people I talked to them about the pain and say, if I provide you this end of an interesting day, is this valuable? Is this something that you would share? Show me pictures that you created, let me, and locations, and let me put it as an experience in my journal. Tell me if this is something that you would share, if this adds value to you. So really mock this up. So it helps you think about what you really want to do, because the high level fluff and the story is nice, but you really need to translate it into what does the user really need to do in order to make this happen. And also really make sure that you include those screens and get the feedback and collect the information. Project management. So, okay, you put the screens in place, you kind of feel like you know where you're going, your story is starting to shine. Maybe you grabbed a person or two to help you start building this. This is really where you're going to need to start really looking at this as a project management and communication, and find the right tools for you. Now, there's a ton of tools out there. A lot of them are free, by the way. Big believer in that for sure. But really make sure that you use these tools, because it's going to be critical as you build yourself and your product. And it's important for you to constantly prioritize, but also for the development and team and whoever, marketing teams, the product management teams, and whoever is involved together with you. I personally try probably everything, and I try to give about 5 on the list that I actually use quite a bit. Trello and Pivotal Tracker, awesome to actually move and force you to prioritize tasks. I love it when you have to decide between 2 tasks and not say that everything is important. So, really use something like this to actually organize your thoughts and organize what's really, really important and communicate with between the marketing and development and the product. Basecamp is a great, if you're growing a little bit more, it costs already money, but it's a great tool to actually also upload screens and show what you mean, and really add more verbal into that. I would say that's a little bit for more mature teams or very sparse teams all over the world. Asana, when you want to actually create tasks, that works sometimes, versus the other ones. It really depends on how you would like to use it. We use Slack a lot to communicate. My team, some of them are in Israel, some of them are in Santa Cruz, so I kind of have them all over the place. Super important for me to continue communicating, but also Slack has amazing integrations, for example, with Git, for example, with Pivotal Tracker, so I can see every time, or he can see every time I prioritize. I can see every time, something is being pushed to Git, and actually, so et cetera. So really a great communication tool, a great project management and communication tools. So really choose what works for you. Do a little bit of experimenting. Different things will work for different projects and different teams, but really find a good method for yourself, because you'll be prioritizing all the time. You'll be changing things repeatedly, and you want something that will be able to close the loop with the team. Get the small things going. Sometimes you need to lean on the, really low-hanging fruit, and sometimes these low-hanging fruit can actually take a ton of time. Name of a company. I can't state it enough. I don't know a lot of people that actually, or a lot of startups that died because of the name. I don't know if you know WhatsApp, but WhatsApp actually is known to be the app with the #1 misspelled word in the App Store. They held this prestigious name problem for quite a few years, and there again they were sold for a lot of money. So really, make sure that you want it to be something personal. You want to be connected to it, but you can literally spend months on it, move on. Worst case, you'll change it. And it sounds horrendous to change a name, but a lot of startups do. So move on. There's some tools that will help you decide on a name, like Noam and many others. You can just Google it, but really find a way to find something. Noam, by the way, the reason I like it is because it also tells you if it's free in all the social media, which is actually, I think it's a pretty interesting, pretty important one. So either it's the name or I'm called Stiya Live in all of my social media, but make sure it's one thing and not for every social media it's something else, because it's impossible for people to find you. If you can get a web up with Wix or WordPress or something to just get things going and start getting some traffic and etc., I'd highly recommend it. Sometimes you can get a lot of stuff done later with coding, but it might be worthwhile to just start getting some blog out, start getting some information out, start getting the SEOs figured out. So it could be interesting to just start getting things rolling. And it is something that you can personally always go back and change versus have your development do. So by the way, I think if I need to think of Stiya as one mistake, this is one mistake that I've done. I'm a coder as well, and I was kind of intrigued by having something super sophisticated. And now it's super hard to change anything. So this is from coming from somebody who was actually created that had a mistake there. So highly recommended. Find something super generic, super easy to use. Eventually you can change the architecture of that piece, unless everything is web-based for you, and then it's not relevant. But for a lot of it is relevant. Fiverr, I don't know if you guys know it. For small gigs, it's a hit or miss. I've seen places where I got mediocre work, but for anywhere between $5 and $100, you can get a lot of small gigs going, whether it's a logo or a PowerPoint help or something with design. So if you don't have the people there, it's a really, really good way to start tackling start tackling these small gigs to get you going faster. By the way, this is a great, I don't know if I can share this somehow with you guys, but this is a great tool selection. It's called startupstash.com. I find it super duper useful. I'll try to open it for a second. Let me see if actually, I don't know if you can see it, so never mind. Sorry about that. So if I can pass it somehow to the audience who's interested, definitely give it a shot. Very, very interesting stuff. Moving on. Definitely create some kind of a video. I don't need to show you all the video, or I'll go through it maybe really quick. It's 1 minute video. The reason I'm showing this is really that you want to create something catchy. That will be explained really quick what you do. I'll play it because it's literally 1 minute, but it will give you some ideas. Oh, sorry about that. So the reason I wanted to state this video is video really is worth a million words. And many times that explains things in ways that you can't. Very easy, and videos can be animated and sophisticated, and sometimes they'll cost a ton of money, but there's many ways to create it. This is made from stock photos, and just kind of stitched together pretty nicely with music, and honestly just doesn't cost much. So really find ways. I'm not the one that will afford, many thousands of dollars on a video right now. But I found a way to create a decently done video with stock photos. So just the reason I showed it is I kind of want to give you more ideas to cut costs, because video can be super important, but it can also cost a lot of money. Learning and measurement. This is a continuous cycle. The whole idea, and we talked about the MVP, build, measure, learn, the three things. So you really want to continuously build something that people will test, create that product, measure what does it do to your audience, collect the data, and we'll talk about analytics a little bit, learn about it, learn what you found in that data and how are you going to make it better. So again, build, measure, learn, which is a continuous cycle. So really watch these people use your product. And that's why the MVP are super important to get out quick, because the way you would think is not necessarily what other people think. And I'll give some examples from my experience. And really kind of watch them. Don't necessarily go with tons of Facebook ads or anything. Just kind of watch, what do people do? Are they using it? Use analytics. I don't care if it's Mixpanel or some others or Amplitude. There's a bunch of mixed analytics if it's apps, and a lot of analytics like Google Analytics if it's web. But really use analytics to understand what people are doing on your platform. And if you can, also reach out for feedback. Really talk, if you see people continuously working with your product, try to understand why. Literally email them personally and saying, hey, I can see that you're using my product. I'd love to learn what you like about it. What can I do better, etc. Really get that feedback from you. For them, and really also show them a personal relationship. Start building that relationship. The other thing is that I would say is, and also understand if somebody doesn't like it, like, why don't you like it? For Stiya, I literally just got an email of somebody saying, I always take all my pictures in my DSLR. I know I'm rare, but it doesn't help me as much. Okay, so DSLR people are not my audience. The people that are using the mobile will be my audience, etc. But, you kind of want to watch it and make sure that you learn from failures as well as successes. The other thing is also make sure that you want to listen to the feedback, but you don't want to make active decisions necessarily based on this feedback. So you really need to make sure, you can't make everyone happy. You need to make sure that you understand where the vision is going and what you really want to change in life. And the fact that, a few people are using something that you didn't really plan, well, is that a majority or not? For example, in Stiya, we're, starting to see, for example, realtors. People are touring houses and doing journals of the houses. Do we want to go over after the realtor market? It's decisions that you want to make, but make sure that you make it along with the vision of where you wanted the product to go. Just some examples. Launching, so we're almost done. Launching, really don't launch before it's ready. So put it, make all the tests you can, put it on the App Store silently. But when you really launch, very loudly with PR, and we'll talk about more, product content other ways, make sure that you're ready. Because people don't necessarily, especially the early adopters, they'll give you one chance, but they don't really give a lot of chances. If you're not really ready, wait for it. It's okay. It's, you can launch in a month. You can launch in 2 months. Give yourself enough time of that cycle to build, learn, test. so that you really make it better, and that once you open it up, it's really ready for these early adopters, and for them to pass it on to not so early adopters. When you think about it, really lower barrier for adoption. Think of yourself. Nobody wants another tool. Nobody wants to learn another app. Really think about how do you lower the barrier as much as possible, whether it's, something that is just such a need that people will fall over it, but that's very rare. In most cases is how do you make people try it out and make it simple. Embrace evangelists. I'm a huge believer in ambassadors and evangelists, people that really love the feedback. It doesn't need to be a lot. Have a handful or two of people that really, really love your product help you. Send them presents, send them giveaways, make them shine on social media, really make them feel special. They'll do everything for you. So really do that. And find influencers, in your spare time, go to blogging conferences, go to other things, really find those influencers that will help you along the way and bring their followers as well. The other thing that you need to know is, it's really funny because sometimes you work really, really, really hard to get to the launch, but actually that's where it's really starting to pick up. So this is really when you're starting to work hard, because that's really when you're starting to be super measured about, whether it's a consumer product or the business coming in or, whatever it is. This is where investors want to understand where you're coming and how it's going. So really make sure you understand that this is where work is really starting. Visibility, I can't state how important that is. It doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C or, pure enterprise, you need to be visible. And whether it's, and each visibility needs to be different. I mean, if you're more enterprisey, LinkedIn is your Bible. If you're more, consumer, social media is, the biggest thing. But really make sure that you tackle those areas and be visible on all of them if you can. Use scheduling. And by the way, you can definitely take advantage of intern.com and other to get people to help you out for a lower cost. But social media overall, use scheduling like Hootsuite or Buffer that can really make it easier for you to share and easier to manage the social media aspect. Other areas that I would look into is AngelList. If you're looking to raise money, be sure that you're at least visible there and you look good and you have some followers, etc. So really maintain that, especially if you want money from angels. That's going to be pretty key. Mattermark, it's a nice suite to kind of understand where you are versus your competitor. How do investors see you? Product hunts, if you're launching, this is the place you want to go. It definitely gives you a boost. And again, visibility in terms of what people are doing. I touched it a little bit. It's a lot of around analytics. There's a lot of tools. I didn't want to put all of them. I personally use Mixpanel. I find it the best because I'm an app. There's others for other cases. Intercom, one of the greatest products I've seen in a long time. It's an SDK that sits in an app, and I can literally chat with anybody downloading the app to understand what makes it hard, what's good, so I can really build that relationship. So there are great tools out there, so make sure you're taking advantage of it. That's it. Keep calm. May the force be with you, and good luck. I think it's an awesome ride. I think women overall moved really changed the needle now, and we do see more investment to women. We do see more women entrepreneurs. I kind of said I'm going to touch it a little bit in terms of how do you tackle being a woman in this male dominant place, but really you need to be so focused on your startup that you need to be, honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, okay? You have an amazing idea that will change the world, and you're the best executor for it. And that's the why me, why why this, why now. It doesn't matter that you're a woman, okay? And if you can, find those examples of why, even though you're a woman, you kind of beat against all odds. So that's it. Good luck, and I'm open to questions. And that's it.
Fabulous presentation.
Thank you.
I see lots of links in my afternoon where I'm going to go check out all of these tools. There's a few I've heard of, but a few I haven't. So I'm really looking forward to investigating those and learning more. So I'm going to open up the mics for everybody. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
I'm not scary. Anyway.
No, you're not. So can I ask a little bit about your support system? I mean, I know you're, really focused on what you're doing at hand, but there's got to be times, as an entrepreneur myself, I know that sometimes I can get in my own head and just drive myself insane. So what do you do for your own method of support when you feel like you're in a situation that's really tough and you want some advice? What do you do?
Yeah. So first of all, it's an excellent question because, you're right. It's a very lonely process, and that's probably the hardest thing about it. And one of the things that I learned, a few startups ago is that the team is not the right place to go necessarily, because they're leaning to, well, I guess maybe if you have very strong co-founders, maybe, but in general, they're leaning on you to be the strong person, and you can't, fall apart. I do have friends, and I rely a lot on them. I rely on my husband. My husband is super duper involved with what I'm doing. We decided not to work together, although theoretically we could. That would lower the price significantly, but we decided that it's not good for the kids or the shrink that will need to accompany us. So but I am talking to him a lot about it, and he's definitely slapping me when I'm getting some, like weird reaction. He's just like, kind of, come on, wake up. It's an amazing idea. Nobody's ever, there really isn't, it should be searchable, shareable, blah, blah. So he's really getting me back on track. I personally also go hiking. So honestly, one of my greatest ideas are when I actually leave the screen, leave the house, go on a hike for a couple hours. And it's not easy to do it. Sometimes you're like, but I have so much work, da, 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 da. But it's helping me a lot. So yes, and there's a lot of women groups that I actually am part of that helps as well, because there's a lot of people that are kind of sharing some of it. I recently joined High Power Women, and I think that's also going to kind of help out. So it's great. But I'm building the support, so it's a great question. Yeah.
I know, people don't realize how isolating being an entrepreneur can be. I think that's one of the biggest surprises for women who were in corporate America and then they become entrepreneurs. They don't realize until they're in it how it can be. So that's great that you have all of these support mechanisms for you.
Yeah. And by the way, it's a good point, because I think that the two surprises, and maybe I should have mentioned it, but the two surprises I had becoming an entrepreneur is, one is the loneliness, and you're actually lonely even from friends because you don't have time to see friends. So you really are lonely. The other one is rejections, because I think, you're used to being excellent all the time. You're used to being amazing all the time. And everybody always, pats on your back and says how amazing you are. And suddenly you're going into this environment and you hear no's all the time, or you launch and there's crickets. And, so it's really more about these rejections that teach you a lot and how to overcome these rejections. That's where you need the support system. So it's kind of a really nice.
Yeah, I remember, when I first started out, I would get rejected. I mean, I still get rejected a lot. And a friend of mine said, just remember that no is not no. No just means not yet. And that really helped me a lot to kind of pivot it on its head, that it really wasn't a rejection. It's just, they're just not ready yet. They don't see it yet, but they will. So
exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there isn't any other questions, I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but I want to thank you so much for an amazing presentation. I'm going to be sharing this often with women that I know on the Global Tech Woman Facebook group who are pondering taking that leap. And this might be the push that they need to start really considering it.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's an amazing program.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And so for people who are watching this recording, you can share this with friends and colleagues. This will be on our YouTube channel and on our website. And it should be up in about an hour or $3 off.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much.
Bye.